Yeah, two reasons, Tom. And first of all, thanks for mentioning my U.S. Navy Reserve affiliation. As a reminder, as I'm not on duty, these views are my own. Two main reasons. One is, as you recall, the Obama administration sought a path to normalize relations toward Cuba after what he called 50 years of a failed isolation, maximum pressure campaign against the communist regime in Cuba. President Trump reversed most of those policies and took a hard line against Cuba, solely with a more conservative view that the maximum pressure campaign was the right way to go. That involved hundreds of sanctions and other restrictions against Cuba. So it is fitting in line with what he's done in the past. Now, what these sanctions particularly do is they close the couple hundred of Western Union locations that were located in Cuba, and they prevent U.S. citizens and others abroad from sending, a couple $100s a month, the average remittance signed back to people in Cuba. And Cuba does receive billions of dollars of remittances, up to half of what I've heard come from the United States. So that is a big economic hit. Now, you asked about politics. This was actually announced before the election. And just bringing it back to the way this affects domestic politics, President Trump won the state of Florida. And 75% of the gains that he had from 2016, the Cuban-American area, was won by Hillary Clinton by 30 points in 2016. It was won by Vice President Biden by only 7 points. So Trump made a lot of ground there. 75% of his vote gains were from that area that would look upon these favorably. So this was announced just before the election, and it's taking place this week. So there's your other reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, Florida hasn't actually decided an election, has it, since 2000, but it has the potential to, so I'm sure that will not be ignored by either side. Just updating us on where we're at with Hong Kong and the Chinese Communist Party, this story is increasingly becoming one of China has won. The world, much of the world, has given up putting much energy into the plight of Hong Kongers and what that might mean for China. Does it have a blueprint for Taiwan?
That's the question, Tom. When the national security law was passed in June, the question we asked here on this program was, why would China do it if they didn't think they would get away with it? And here we are toward the end of the year, and you see the chief executive, Carrie Lam, give the speech she gave this week, which praised the national security law as a bastion of stability this week. You see protesters, famous Joshua Wong, in prison right now. It sounds like he's, at least this week, in a 24-hour bright light medical facility right now, and they're trying to make a point that the Communist Party will take control over Hong Kong and likely will for the foreseeable future. And one other note is that countries like the UK, which rightfully so, are allowing British national overseas visa holders to come back to the UK for citizenship. And it sounds like 500,000 or 1 million might actually go back to the UK over the next year. That will actually have the effect within Hong Kong of having most of the pro-democracy people leave and leaving behind people that are staunchly Beijing. So it only solidifies, at least back in Hong Kong, what that will be. So the Hong Kong, as we know it, probably is on a trajectory towards ceasing to exist.
Yeah, it's sad to say. It does feel inevitable. Hey, just finally on the Joe Biden transition, we've had this morning Donald Trump conceding. It looks as though he'll leave the White House. Look, I know you need to be careful about politics. Let's give you a hypothetical. If a president, an outgoing president, refused to leave the White House, what could happen? What's the practical things that kick in here?
Well, the Constitution would kick in and the courts would actually force the executive branch to enforce the movement. So at noon on January 20th, they have to vacate the White House. Now, whether that would have to be done forcibly, that's the question. But the courts would have to rule quickly that the Constitution requires that vacation and that movement based on the certification of votes that would take place on January 5th. So that's the big next timeline, is that first week in January, first week in January, I remember the exact date. The Senate will certify the state results, and at that point, the person that has the most electoral votes by the Constitution has to be given the White House at noon on January 20th. So that's the case there. Whether President Trump fully concedes or states that there was not fraud in this election after the courts decide the concession's not required. But the good news is this week, transition is more in a formal place, with formally transition moving forward. And it sounds like from Monday, the president-elect and vice president-elect will receive classified national security briefings. So that's moving in the right direction.